Okay, so speaking of stifling of dissent and stifling of speech, we did a segment on this last week. But the White House is now getting involved. Biden administration unveils new actions to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. The Biden administration is unveiling new actions on Monday to combat anti-Semitism on campuses after an alarming uptick in incidents since the Israel-Hamas war started in early October. The Departments of Justice and Homeland Security are partnering with campus law enforcement. Let me repeat that. The Departments of Justice and Homeland Security are partnering with campus law enforcement. You know, the douchebags used to drive around the college campus at night. Now, they have two new colleagues, the DOJ and the DHS, to track hate-related threats and provide federal sources to schools, according to the plan, which was shared exclusively with NBC News. Some of what they will be assessing include specific and credible threats that are flagged online. There was an arrest made at Cornell University. A 21-year-old kid was apparently threatening people, and so they charged him, which is all well and good. You should not be allowed to threaten people, obviously. However, do we really believe this is going to stop there? We'll read on. Dozens of cybersecurity and protective security experts at DHS have been detailed to engage with schools as they navigate incredibly tense environments, a White House official said. So why don't we go to some video here rather than read that boring article, because this really says it all, right? Obviously, there are laws against threatening people, especially if you're threatening them because of any protected group status. No one is going to argue that people should not be allowed to threaten people because of who they are. Right. However, this clip here gives you a pretty good example of what they consider to be threatened comments or threatening comments or bigoted comments. Here's White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre comparing the student protests for Palestine to, I don't even want to give this away. I want to see if anybody in the audience who hasn't seen this, guess what she's going to invoke. Hint, it's not January 6th, believe it or not. It's not January 6th. You got to go a little further back in time than January 6th, but let's take a watch.
Israel protesters in this country are... Doesn't Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there's no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017.
Oh,
he saw
Charlottesville in 2017. That's the comparison she draws. Not January 6th, Charlottesville. Let's play this again.
When the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017. When he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
What an unbelievable joke this administration is. I mean, what an incredible joke. You're going to compare Free Palestine protests to a Unite the Right white supremacist rally in Charlottesville.
A protest in favor of brown, mostly Muslim people. This is why I'm saying they're desperate and they're afraid. Because there's such... For propaganda to really be effective, it has to be somewhat plausible. And there is just such a mismatch between this rhetoric of these protests being rooted in anti-Semitism and the reality. I mean, they keep making these claims that there's this mass waves of anti-Semitism at these protests. I mean, I would think if they had a lot of evidence of that, they'd be spreading it around, right? You'd be seeing a lot of videos of that. And as you pointed out on the last show, people at these kinds of protests are usually very conscious not to present themselves that way because they understand that it hurts the cause.
Exactly.
I mean, when you're talking about worldwide hundreds of thousands of people, can you find a guy? Sure. Sure, but that certainly doesn't characterize the movement. And having been to one of these protests, I saw racism among the counter protesters, which I documented and showed on the show. I'm an honest broker. If I had seen it on the other side of the street, it would have been in that footage. I didn't see it. It didn't exist.
Yeah, no, and this is the same White House that just said that. The same White House that just said that the pro-Palestine, free Palestine, anti-genocide protests on college campuses, populated with students who are only following the advice of their professors who told them to decolonize their mind, right, and stand up against white supremacy. They are analogous to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. That same White House is now going to be coordinating with your campus cops to police online speech.
Which is really terrifying.
Please clap.